Zoran Mandami, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zoran Mandami?
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country.
Donald Trump escalating the right-wing attacks on New York City mayoral candidate Zoran Mandani during his press conference in Florida this week. The self-described Democratic socialist has become one of the right-wing's top foes after he defeated Andrew Cuomo in the mayoral primary and became an overnight star. Mandani responded by saying Trump is, quote, targeting him as a way of diverting attention from Republican plans to slash taxes for the rich and social safety net programs for the neediest. Joining us now, former New York Congressman Jamal Bowman. So what do you think? How do you make sense of this nutty moment in New York City politics where the establishment completely lost and Mamdani really had quite an impressive win? And now you look at, there's some quarters where Eric Adams, who had been previously cast aside as just out in the wilderness and left for dead, and he might be seeing a resurgence.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, Zoran Mamdani ran an exceptional, inspiring, extraordinary campaign. And he's galvanized the city and he's galvanized the country. And Donald Trump is afraid because now he has someone who can match him wit for wit and impact for impact. And actually, I think Zoran is going to ultimately have a better impact on our democracy than Donald Trump, who is currently destroying it. I mean, the Trump administration just committed the largest heist in U.S. history. $1 trillion cuts in Medicaid, $300 billion cuts in SNAP. He's literally taking from the poor, the hungry, and the sick, and giving the largest tax breaks in our history to the wealthiest Americans. And so they are destroying, Trump and the administration are destroying America, targeting the most vulnerable, and Zoran is fighting for the very people Trump lied to, saying he was going to bring down prices, but they have not come down.
I don't know.
Things are getting worse.
I disagree with this. I feel like in many ways, Mamdani is the fever dream candidate that Republicans always wanted, right? He's Muslim. He's a self-described socialist. He's from New York. It's like all of the scary boogeyman qualities that Republicans have long claimed that all Democrats are, and he actually embraces. So to me, this is not like a challenge to the Republican narrative. If anything, this is a gift. Like they want to be able to say all Democrats are Muslim, socialist, whatevers. And that's why you need to put your faith in Donald Trump.
You know, it's very disturbing and it's frustrating and it angers me that the right continues to lean into racism and Islamophobia and division in the way they govern our country. When are we going to finally realize the dream of a liberal democracy for all Americans? So yes, Donald Trump has given red meat to his MAGA base, yes. But what Zoran represents is a galvanizing of the voters who continuously stay home because they don't want to vote for establishment Democrats. And that hurt Kamala Harris, that has hurt us locally in the past, but he is galvanizing the people who are tired of our politics being anti-working class people. And so in that regard, Republicans better be afraid. Yes, it's red meat for their racism, but it's also galvanizing other tens of millions of people who will vote in the next presidential and hopefully help us with a blue wave next cycle.
And to that point, we did just see Tucker Carlson and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene actually even acknowledge some of that when they had a conversation on the podcast. They were saying that they don't agree with him on any of his policies, but the message of populism actually speaks to them, and they appreciated some of the ways in which he went about his campaign. I think there's a recognition there.
But he lost the lowest income voters in New York City. So
that's what I wanted to ask. So if he fared better in more of the hip young enclaves within New York City, not working class, not necessarily men and women of color, and you look at Eric Adams is able to tout his record on crime, and on crime decreasing, and he did quite well in his last election with working class voters. Mayor Adams did. Is that going to be difficult for Zoran?
Well, what we saw in this primary is Zoran outperformed Eric Adams in the places that he won in the last election, right? So he did better in those places. You know, when we talk about the hipsters in New York, the hipsters are
But it was
also
such elevated turnout, too.
Well,
It was
Correct.
incredible
Well,
turnout.
He did
Right?
win Latinos and Asian New Yorkers.
Yes,
and did
and
better
he-
with black voters, actually, than many people thought he was
He
going
did
to.
better with black voters, and he won younger black voters as well. I mean, listen, Cuomo is establishment. Mario Cuomo, his father, establishment. So we're talking about older black voters mostly, you know, the black church and the establishment aligning themselves with Cuomo because they didn't know who Zoran was. And Zoran now already is getting out there to engage the establishment a lot better so that he could build those relationships and get their support. I mean, listen, Eric Adams, you know, he was facing federal charges until he went to Mar-a-Lago, negotiated with Trump, and then all of a sudden the charges went away, and the entire, what was it, Southern District resigned as a result of this deal. Eric Adams has hurt the careers of many people around him, all had to resign in embarrassment because of these federal charges. So Eric Adams has shown himself, in my opinion, to be a disgrace to the office and will not, he's going to run his race, but I think Zoran's going to come through in November.
So we have to ask you about the story everybody's been talking about here in New York the last few days. So the New York Times reported on Mamdani's 2009 application to Columbia University, saying, quote, asked to identify his race, he checked a box that he was Asian, but also black or African American, according to internal data derived from a hack of Columbia University that was shared with the New York Times. Few caveats that I think is important to add there. He included writing in that he was born in Uganda, which is true. And then also that the New York Times, there's been some controversy around the person they received this hacked information from, who is engaged in racist discussion and eugenics work. But given the fact that people are now scrutinizing this, what kind of response do you want to see from Mamdani on it? And do you think it's disqualifying in any way?
Hell no. I mean, he's already responded. I mean, basically, these applications, they don't have a category for Ugandan, you know, Indian or whatever his background is, right? So he filled it in Ugandan and he explained it the way he explained it. The interesting thing you mentioned was about the gentleman who found this information, and you mentioned the connection to eugenics. Eugenics is the belief that our intelligence is tied to our biology. And the framing of the story, in my opinion, from the Times as I read it, one, it didn't seem newsworthy to me, and two, it seemed to be, once again, red meat for people who are trying to connect some type of scandal to this application, some type of scandal to his ethnic background. I just think it's not newsworthy. It's not disqualifying at all.
Do you think it's going to upset black voters in the city?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he was born in Uganda. Uganda's in Africa. I mean, he you know, he filled it out.
Sorry to be the contrarian at this couch today, but generally, I don't really care what people did before they were like 18 if they're running for office right now. I did stupid things then, so who cares about that? But I do think if this were a Republican candidate or even people would be going nuts, or even an establishment Democratic candidate, this would also
Look
be
at how
a national
Elizabeth
story.
Warren got just right over the coals.
Yeah, so I feel like the idea that
And do you not think, though, that it is newsworthy in the sense that he is going to be over the New York City public school system, which is highly politicized in the sense that the elite schools within the system, there's a contentious debate going on over how students should be admitted.
And including on race, and should they be more race conscious, and should they, because there are so few African American and Latino students at the top elite schools that, for example, Mamdani went to?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me as a 20-year educator, middle school principal, I have a doctorate in education. It's a non-issue for me. You know, I don't think it's going to be an issue in the race. I speak to people in the community all the time. I haven't heard anyone mention anything about this at all. I mean, it just seems like, you know, certain publications or certain individuals are trying to find anything, they're trying to pick him apart and find something that's negative. I mean, he's been an upstanding person throughout the campaign. There's no scandal in his background, and every time you see him, he's smiling and talking about the working class and humanity and justice. I think that's what we should focus on.
Well, he's in the prime time now, so there's only going to be more of this.
It's a big job.
And he had he kind of had a week of glow where everyone can agree that he was incredibly charismatic and ran a really great campaign. And now the spotlights are really going to be on.
Yeah, but let's focus on the positive. He has a lot of positive things to say. Freezing the rent, universal child care. Could you imagine New York State, the country even, with universal child care, how impactful that will be for our children, our families, and for education for generations to come? There's so much in this platform that's positive that we need to focus on. And so I'm just excited for the opportunity for people to vote for him in November, him win, and then we see where it goes from there.
I do not see him stepping out of the spotlight anytime soon, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. But former Congressman Jamal Bowman, thank you so much for joining us on set. Great to see you again.